There are a few things that can ruin a cruise vacation, but a giant medical bill as you're walking off the ship is definitely one of them. These are the stories that you may not have heard of that are truly a nightmare for cruisers. Hey everyone, what is up? My name is Jordan. Thank you so much for tuning into the channel today. Jared is off booking your cruise vacation, so you got me. And we're talking about medical costs on cruise ships. Now, I'm sure you've heard about the gigantic bills that people are slapped with when they're taken off of a ship or when they have a loved one taken off of the ship that's really ill. But there are some other charges that aren't talked about that much that have come up a couple of times on cruises that I have been on with people that I know. So we're going to kind of talk about the nitty gritty of some of these unexpected charges that you might find and some of the things that could cost you a lot of money. But before we do that, I do just want to invite you to subscribe to the channel. Of course, we are on this road to 50,000 subscribers. You could be a part of the first 50K JJ crew. Do not forget to hit the subscribe button, and while you're down there, hit that thumbs up. So, you have been waiting for a year to take your cruise. You've got things packed, you have things ready to go, you fly out, everything is going smooth, you embark, the ship sails away, and then you find yourself coming down with something. What happens next? Well, hopefully, whatever you're coming down with is something that is simple, will keep you out of the medical unit, and just maybe a common cold that if you quarantine in your room for a couple of days, you'll be okay. But what happens if luck is not on your side? There are certain medical costs associated with going to see the doctor or the nurse on a cruise ship that I think people would find quite surprising. Now, I went through and looked at a lot of different cruise lines, including Carnival, NCL, Royal Caribbean, Celebrity, a number of other cruise lines as well, to look at the price of different things on cruise ships and what it would cost you to go see a doctor. Now, in a medical unit, which is typically found all the way in the bowels of the ship, normally it's on decks 1 or 2, or maybe even lower if you're on an older cruise ship. If you're feeling unwell and you do have to see a nurse or a doctor, typically they will provide you with those two options. You can see a nurse or you can see a doctor. The nurse is typically around $50 to $80. Seeing a doctor costs anywhere from $100 to $200 depending on the cruise line that you're with. Now that is just to have an appointment to see a doctor. This is where things start to add up when you're sick on a cruise ship. You have to pay out-of-pocket cost for any medication that they prescribe you, any services that they might need to give you, and any additional medical equipment that you might need to borrow until you are on land again, or if you just have to have those for the rest of your cruise. One very common thing that's come up now several times on cruise ships is people needing liquid antibiotics. Now, liquid antibiotics are antibiotics that are, of course, given to you through an IV. And those are not cheap. On cruise ships, they typically range anywhere from $1,500 up to $3,500, depending on how much antibiotic and how many days you're on a liquid antibiotic IV. That price is outrageous, and I'm sure some of you are sitting at home a little bit shocked by this. Others of you might not be so shocked. But the common mistake that cruisers make is that these things are not covered by your home medical insurance. If you have medical insurance that covers you while you're here on land, once you step out of the country, that is not valid. Of course, there are things like travel insurance that you can purchase that will help with those costs, but your standard home medical insurance that you have within whatever state that you live in don't cover that $3,000, $3,500 antibiotic drip. Let's say that something very serious goes wrong, like there's some problem with your heart. There are a number of things on a cruise ship that they can provide and that they can give you. However, they come again with a high cost. Anything associated with the heart or cardiac is going to run you between $600 and $1,200 depending on what procedure they may have to provide. Now, they cannot provide every procedure that you can get on land. A medical center on a cruise ship is not going to be like a fully blown ER hospital that you're going to find on land, but they've got the basic tools to help save your life and keep you alive until they might need to get you off the ship. Once again, when something serious goes wrong, That range that I just threw out there doesn't include medications that they might have to be giving you. You're paying for every single time they prescribe something or give you a certain type of medication. For simple bacterial infections, the medication can cost upwards of $400. This obviously is a much higher cost than if you just get sick or have a bacterial infection here at home. But that's a lot of money to pay for some pills that you will need to potentially stop whatever infection is in your body. The big one, of course, is medical evacuation. Now, we've all been on a cruise ship or seen on the news where a helicopter has to come in and get a patient who is critically ill and take them to land or take them to the nearest hospital. This type of procedure, depending on where you are, it all depends on how far away you are from land and what country you will be being brought to. If you're brought to Mexico or the Bahamas or the US and you're right there on the coastline, it might run you like $25,000 to $35,000. If you are on a transatlantic cruise or somewhere out in the middle of the ocean and you have to fly a long way, it can cost up to $100,000 or $150,000. One thing that people do not realize, and this is something I didn't know until recently, that typically is for one person. There is an additional cost if you want someone to go with you, and there is another additional cost charged to you if there needs to be a doctor there or someone else from the ship getting into the helicopter or evacuation to help keep you alive in transit to the land-based hospital. We see this all over the place. Big news headlines that say, man charged $100,000 for having to be evacuated off of the ship. Unfortunately, it's very sad, but it does happen. The great thing is the medical staff on cruise ships are always great. There are a lot of stories that come out about people being transferred off by helicopter or taken off once the ship arrives and land, and those patients living and surviving. And they live and they survive because of the quick work of the medical team on cruise ships. Medical staff is, of course, something that is necessary on ships. It just gets so complicated when you realize that your medical insurance or your medical card from Blue Cross Blue Shield isn't going to work or get you anything on the ship at no cost. At the end of the day, you have to decide what is right for you. If doing something like going out and buying travel insurance makes you feel better and feels like that would help protect you from some of these large costs, then that would be a step that you'd want to look into. It's, of course, your choice. But I do want to know, and this is a little bit of an experiment, down below, how many people, based on these stories, typically do buy travel insurance with their cruise package? Are you someone that buys it through the cruise line? Are you somebody that purchases cruise insurance separately from a third party? Let me know in the comments below if you are someone that never travels or leaves the country without travel protection. Some of these stories were really shocking to me. I'm sure they were shocking to you too. You can also let me know in the comments below if you were surprised by any of these. But for now, I'm Jordan from JJ Cruise. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button, and until next time, see ya. Change